Funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by viewers like you.
This week on New Mexico in Focus, prescribed burn ban over. The new procedures meant to prevent a disaster like the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire from ever happening again. And
we're really recommending, seniors to get this vaccine. It will help protect them over the fall and winter.
Expert advice for seniors and parents now that a new COVID-19 booster is available to the public. New Mexico in Focus starts now. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm your host, Gene Grant. Extensive reviews, on-site administrators, and 24-hour burn windows. Those are just a few of the changes the U.S. Forest Service is making as it lifts its ban on prescribed burns. At the bottom of the hour, I'll ask our line opinion panelists if those changes are enough to ease the fears of New Mexicans. The panel and I will also explore the new recruitment funding available for local law enforcement departments. The governor signed off on tens of millions of dollars to help hire more officers, but one major New Mexico city won't be seeing any of that cash. We'll explain why in just about 20 minutes. But we start with a report from the Legislative Finance Committee that shows New Mexico is coming up short on treating behavioral health. It's a problem with many contributing factors like our exceptionally high substance abuse rates and access to care. Let's get to the line. Welcome to our line opinion panelists for the week. Always great to see Dave Mulryan. He's president of Mulryan Nash Advertising. We have Julianne Grimm, editor and publisher at the Santa Fe Reporter, and Ed Perea, attorney and public safety consultant. Thank you all for being here. All right, a new series from the Albuquerque Journal highlights many of the shortcomings of our behavioral health system in Bernalillo County, but also the entire state. Those articles show some of the systemic failures, but also make it clear our need here in New Mexico is greater than in most states. And Dave, we rank in the bottom 10 states when it comes to the general prevalence of mental illness among residents. That's as the state, as you know, is investing $930 million this fiscal year alone to improve behavioral health outcomes. It doesn't seem like a money issue, does it? Or is it, after all?
That was one of the things that was somewhat depressing when they were pointing out that, in terms of funding, we do pretty good. We as a state, we do pretty well in how much we do fund. Mm-hmm. It's just that our outcomes are not that good. And I think one of the other articles that we read, as sort of background today was, are we missing professionals in our state and local governments? And in some ways, I think that, it's not just about throwing money at the problem, although money does tend to help. Mm-hmm. But I think that new ideas and try things that we haven't tried before are also helpful. And also, I want to defend the state somewhat and say, I think one of the problems that New Mexico has is because we're such an enormous state, it is difficult to sort of, get boots on the ground where you need them and to see everything. So in some ways, geography is destiny. And I think that's a big part of our problem. It is very difficult to administer these statewide programs when you're having to deal with places like Albuquerque and having to deal with places like Raton, with 2,400 people in the state, in the city or the town. And I think that those types of differences mean that you're going to have programs that work both on a small side and when you have to supersize them too.
Mm-hmm. Julianne, Dave makes an interesting point about geography. Obviously, the Rio Grande corridor seems to have most of these services. We got a lot of money out here for this. Is this the time to make this situation just much more manageable for folks in rural parts of our state?
Well, I think it's long past time for, people in rural communities to have adequate access to healthcare of all kinds. And certainly that is the biggest challenge area. I think it's the one that, as you mentioned, it is the staffing shortages that are plaguing all of our medical services are particularly acute for behavioral health, substance use treatment, even things like, I think we're going to talk about a little bit later, youth services to help to mitigate some of these long-term problems people can develop if they're not addressed with adequate services for youth. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot that, still needs to be done. And I sort of sympathize with this idea that you you want to leap to the defense of New Mexico and say, look at all the money we're spending and look at all of the problems we have. But that just feels thin. And when you consider the need that we have, and clearly our government, our communities are not doing all that we need to do to meet those needs.
Mm-hmm. Ed, interesting that Julianne brings up money here. One of the things the report was just so mind-blowing is just how much money we have spent so far with kind of not much result. I mean, the state tripled spending on substance abuse treatment and increased services delivery by 85%, but analysts said that in the same time frame, the alcohol-related death rate, drug overdose deaths, violent crime rose 49, 43, and 30% respectively over those years. So I ask again, is it a money issue? Not enough money is being spent? How should we consider the money angle here?
Well, Gene, it's not the money issue. Clearly, by all the data that we've received, there's plenty of money. The citizens of New Mexico and Bernalillo County have been taxed in order to specifically address these issues. And so there's money in this pot to start addressing the issues. Mm-hmm. The problem appears to be the organization and the coordination. There seems to be a lot of individuals involved in the various component parts of this process, but not one person who might be able to pull all the actors and all the different agencies together. It's been written that this whole process seems to be a little bit disjointed, that there are just a lot of little pieces that are taking place. Well, there doesn't appear to be a major concern about services. If you look at the data, it seems to be that there are many services available, but it's the implementation and the outcomes of this treatment that is the biggest concern. Mm-hmm. And so I agree with the others that money isn't necessarily the issue here. The resources are there, but how are we managing it? What's the leadership behind, and what are the ultimate objectives? I'm not sure if the criteria has been very, very clearly spelled out. That's been one of the other criticisms. Is that what is the criteria? What are the metrics that we're measuring? And that's not clear out there.
That's a good point. Dave, substance abuse, alcohol play a large role in this too. We recently hosted a roundtable discussion on the impact of alcohol in our state. What role, I got to ask here, what role do primary care docs play here? Meaning, in terms of understanding someone's substance abuse problems as a mental health issue that needs attention from a specialist. We hear from people all the time that's the break, the leap that has to be made. Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that you hear over and over and over again is that substance abuse cannot be separated from overall health care. And so one could make the argument, or I'll make the argument, maybe we need to concentrate on simply increasing health care at all levels, increasing access. Although, we've done a pretty good job. We went ahead and voted for Medicaid to expand it. But, possibly we simply need to, make overall health care better and, improve the idea of, can we get substance abuse to be, I think it plays a huge role in it. If we can do that, maybe that's one way to sort of attack the problem, maybe fund the healthcare part of it more than we fund specifically those areas. I don't know. I'm not an expert on it, but that would be at least something to try.
Good point there. Julianne, one of the potential solutions the state has pointed to is the expansion of the new 988 crisis hotline. As we all know, or should know, September is Suicide Awareness Month, and the state has been promoting this through this month, of course. Now, will that hotline have the positive impact the state is hoping for? That's a hard thing to sort of break to the public statewide, that we have a new, phone number. You're going to spend a lot of money to do those kind of things, but is this a good idea?
Well, I think people are most familiar with it because it caused us to all have to start dialing the area code when we call anyone else in the 505. That's probably the biggest difference that made people aware of it. But I don't think that type of thing is a silver bullet, really. Mm-hmm. To your point about, could primary care providers help with this? I think that the idea that most people who are struggling with substance abuse and other behavioral health issues, that they have access to primary care, that's not really true. And so we really don't have that baseline, and we don't have systems that are addressing the root causes and, again, giving people support sort of before things get to a crisis level. I think the other thing that you see people doing, the governments are always talking about, let's establish this crisis center. Let's have the one-stop shop for every behavioral health need ever. And we've seen that A, those things don't get built. When they do get built, B, they don't really work. When the Santa Fe County facility that was just built and the Bernalillo facility that's supposed to go in 2024, they both have less than 30 beds each.
Wow.
That doesn't seem like a big enough dent given the problem.
Yeah, that's two key points there. That's not going to put much of a dent. Ed, interestingly, an attorney with the group Disability Rights New Mexico, this is an interesting point here. Says that part of the problem, we're not proactive enough before there is a crisis, meaning the state is underusing Medicaid mandated early periodic testing screening, for example, as well as diagnosing and treating children under 21. How important is it to get to our kids early on this issue, and do we have to set up a framework to do this?
Gene, that's incredibly important. The three approaches to dealing with what can be a potentially serious problem is prevention, intervention, and treatment. And prevention is the most critical piece of this. And if we're not focusing our energies, if we're focusing too much energy on the back end, we've already failed at the front end. The focus needs to be, and granted, we need the appropriate resources in intervention and treatment, but prevention has to be at the forefront of all we do. And as we look at how our money is being spent, we need to put a premium on our prevention measures. What are we doing? What sort of outreach? Because sometimes mental health illness sneaks up on families, sneaks up on individuals before we see it. So what type of outreach are there so when this happens, that those that are affected by it know how to access those resources? And so prevention, getting the word out in order to ensure that as these issues arise on the front end, that they're easily available, attainable, and accessible. And so again, prevention is key. There must be framework. I'm sure that those organizations that are looking at our approach to the mental health issues in this state are looking at prevention, although I haven't seen a lot of research as far as how much work that they put into it. I'm sure that it's out there. I'd like to see more of it.
Prevention's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's a buzzword, but it's awfully hard. Thanks to our line opinion panel for your input on the mental health situation here in our state. We'll be back here with the panel again in less than 10 minutes to talk about new funding for law enforcement recruiting and why one major New Mexico city won't be getting any of that money.
In the 5th grade, a teacher gave an assignment and I was dead set against it, but I'm very competitive, especially as a student. So at the last minute, I sat down and cranked out this poem just to satisfy Sister Rosemary. And when I got up to read it in class, the reaction that I got, I just really loved it. I kind of have been searching for a stage all my life, and I realized that poetry could get me there.
New COVID-19 boosters specifically designed to protect against variants are available now across New Mexico. And while many of us may be burnt out thinking about the virus, doctors with the Department of Health say staying up to date on your vaccines will help protect you from the possibility of serious illness. And that's especially true for anyone over 50. I caught up with the Deputy Department of Health Secretary, Dr. Laura Parajon, to ask what seniors and parents should know about the new shots. Dr. Parajon, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate your time today.
First, thank you. Really glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me to the program.
It's our pleasure. Let's start right off the top with new vaccines. That's probably the most well-known situation we've got going right now. You folks have a release out actually just a few days ago from the DOH site about things are ready to go and appointments are able to be made. What is this vaccine for? And we'll get into who should get it and what we should think about.
Sure. No, thanks so much. Well, I mean, what's really exciting right now is that for the first time, we actually have a COVID booster shot that targets the actual variants, the BA4 and the BA5 that are circulating right now. Most of the variants that are circulating for COVID are the BA4 and 5. So this vaccine is targeted to both the original COVID and the BA4 and BA5. So this lab data that's been shown has actually shown that this vaccine will probably perform much better against these new strains and potentially other strains that are coming up. And it'll do that without sacrificing the original strain of COVID. So, you know, if you're gonna want to protect yourself from COVID this, you know, this fall and winter, it's a really good idea to go out and get your booster shot as soon as possible. You're eligible for a COVID booster vaccine, and we're calling it the Omicron booster just because it's easier to remember. If you're over 12 years old, if you've completed your primary series, and that means either 2 of Pfizer, 2 of Moderna, 1 of Johnson & Johnson. If you've gotten those, you know, then you are eligible for this new Omicron booster. And we're really trying to make it easy for people to get it and make it easy for people to kind of remember, you know. So I know a lot of people have gone like, well, I got my first booster, I also got a second booster. Like it's kind of like tabula rasa now, like clean slate. Let's clean slate it. You got your first primary series, and now go get your booster. So it's kind of becomes like a rhythm, like the flu shot. Every year, go get another flu shot, you know? And so every year, get your updated boost, you know, Omicron booster or whatever the new variant, updated booster that will protect you against COVID for the coming months.
For a lot of folks out there, there's a little bit of vaccine fatigue, as you know, but that idea, we should all get comfortable with that now, shouldn't we?
I really think so. I think, you know, COVID is probably here to stay, kind of like the flu. And then I think once we get into a cadence, you know, we're in a much different spot now than we were before. We have so many tools to protect ourselves from COVID. So that's why, you know, if you are eligible for the booster, it's great to use that tool, because it's one of the best tools to protect ourselves from hospitalization, death, and even long COVID. You know, the vaccine has proven to be very effective for that. I know a lot of people are like, oh man, I got COVID and I was like fully boosted and vaccinated, but you probably got a much less severe version of COVID because you were vaccinated, you know. So these are kind of like, we know this is working. We have data that shows when you get vaccinated, you're much less likely to get really sick, really, you know, like hot, you know, much less likely to get hospitalized or die. So
right. For seniors, should they be particularly noting this new vaccine? Is there some benefit for seniors particularly?
Yeah, you know, we've really seen during the whole COVID pandemic, certain groups are much more likely to get sick or much likely to, you know, to get, you know, hospitalized or die. And those are anyone older than 50. And every year over 50, the more likely you are to get sicker or, you know, hospitalized. So yes, we are really recommending, you know, seniors to get this vaccine. It will help protect them over the fall and winter, you know, when you do get more illnesses, you know, as people are clumped together more. And then, yeah, and then anyone who's at high risk for COVID. For severe COVID. So that would be people who have like diabetes or asthma or anything that puts them at high risk, immune compromise. That these are all really important things to remember right now. Yes, please get your booster if you're a senior or you're at high risk for severe COVID.
Let's go to the other end of the spectrum for children. Yeah. How young can a youngster get a booster, and what are the benefits for parents to do so?
Yeah, so, well, definitely little kids should definitely get their booster shots. You know, a lot of people think, oh man, you know, kids don't get as sick as adults, which is true. Like the majority of people who are getting very, very sick or hospitalized or dying are older people. But your kid can still get COVID, you know, it can be very mild for children, but for some, the infection can lead to hospitalizations and long-term side effects, diabetes and heart conditions like myocarditis. So I really think that, you know, if we have something that can protect our kids from getting really sick, I mean, there have been some kids who have died from COVID, then, you know, why not protect our kids from getting really sick? Also, like, if you're sick, then you don't get to go to school either, and we've seen the effects of the pandemic on kids when they don't go to school. Side effects after the vaccine are really mild and temporary, and extreme reactions are very rare. For us, kids as young as 6 months old can get the vaccine. So, and it's a lower dose. It's been proven to be really safe and effective for children as well. And actually, the reason why it took longer for kids to get into the vaccine set was because they really did rigorous trials to make sure that the kids were safe from, when they got COVID. And so, so kids as young as 6 months can get their COVID vaccine.
Thank you to Dr. Patajon for her explanation of that new COVID booster. If you have any other questions about those shots, the flu, or even monkeypox, watch my full interview with the doctor right now on our YouTube or Facebook pages. And if you want to sign up for a shot, we have links to those resources there too. Now, let's welcome back our Line Opinion panelists to talk about law enforcement recruiting funding here in New Mexico. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham is giving more than $40 million to law enforcement agencies across the state for officer recruitment. Yet Santa Fe won't receive any after failing to apply. Julianne, that word failing might be just a little strong here. Is this a systemic issue, or do Santa Fe officials carry the blame here, or was there another plan that we just weren't aware of before it hit the press?
Well, I just think there's some greater context. The story that you're referring to appeared in the Santa Fe New Mexican, and I think this is what journalists do in local communities. We look at a big state list of who's getting what, and then if our town is not on it, we ask why not. And I think, though, the real answer to why not is because our city is already suffering from funded positions that the city has said we can hire these folks and pay for them, but the department is unable to fill those positions for a variety of reasons. And so this money that was available from the state and this big pool, really wasn't something that was going to help the city of Santa Fe with its biggest challenge. Sort of why ask for state money when you're not spending the city money from your very own jurisdiction that's already been allocated to you. So we looked at this in the summer. The reporter did a story and looked at this consultant's report that had just been issued that said, yes, this is a systemic problem in Santa Fe, that we have vacancies at an unusually high rate, and we have those vacancies consistently. And so the last time we asked for the numbers, we were looking at 18% of the funded sworn positions were not filled. So that's about 170 jobs, and 30 of them were vacant.
Wow, interesting. David, money has always been a big discussion point on crime and police staffing, as Julianne just mentioned, and now we have some, but then you hear from people like the Santa Fe County Sheriff, who says only funding 29 agencies is, quote, totally disproportionate, end quote, to the statewide need. Would you agree with the Sheriff Mendoza on this, or is that where we need to start, or should we roll this out slowly? I guess my question is, does he have a point here?
I mean, to me, we're on some sort of downward spiral. I mean, there were 3 homicides in Albuquerque last night, and I recall like a couple of years ago talking to the then chief of police, and he was talking about how if we in Albuquerque, and let's sort of say statewide, if we had a similar number of police to population that they had in New York, which has become one of the safest cities in the country, we would need to expand our police force by 3 times. We'd have to go from 1,000 officers to 3,000 officers. And I think that, the question is, money sometimes isn't really the issue. The issue is, why are we not funding? Why are we not getting recruitment? Why is our police force and police forces in Santa Fe, why do they have these vacancies? Let's get to the bottom of that. And if it is a money issue that we're not paying enough, or that we don't, whatever it is, we need to find it, because I'll tell you, when you have crime rates that scare people, that is not good for any aspect of living in your state, for economic or, well-being or education or anything. I mean, it's just, none of it is any good.
I think that's a really good point to make about the the pay rate because there wasn't a lot of flexibility in the state funding either. You couldn't say we want to pay our existing officers more or we want to hire officers at a higher rate. It was really based on sort of the status quo, which also isn't going to move us.
I'm glad you got that in. That's a key point. Hey, Ed, interestingly, the Albuquerque Police Department set to receive the highest amount, probably not surprisingly, $8.75 million. Slated to fund 67 officer vacancies. Now, according to the governor's office, all that, the Las Cruces Police Department is getting about the same amount. But is it a guarantee this money will bring the recruits, we just started talking about this, that the department needs? Is it enough, I guess, is the bottom line question.
Yeah, and we're talking, Gene, we're talking about two different issues, and the other contributors are absolutely right. They're on point. Money is great for budgets. So if you're talking to the leadership in any municipality or city, it's great. Give us more money. We can always use more money. But does it address the underlying issue? It seems like we were talking a lot about symptoms. Officers, individuals aren't applying, they're retiring early, they're quitting, whatever. But what are the underlying issues? And I think we're spending a lot of time talking about the symptoms. There was a period of time that, and I don't want to blame Hollywood too much, but there were a lot of positive TV shows about the nature of being a police officer.
Yep.
I mean, I grew up watching Adam 12, and as a young teenager, young kid, that's pretty impressive. Of course, I'm third generation law enforcement, so it really didn't take a lot to encourage me to pursue the field. But why are we not having more and more young adults pursuing this career? I see a lot again on the back end, but I haven't seen a study where we've looked at and we've spoken to young adults and surveyed young adults and said, would you be interested in this career? And if not, why? And get the information, from the users as to why more and more young adults aren't applying for these types of positions. Before I left APD, just very briefly, I started a collaboration between CNM, APS, and APD with the idea being if we capture them young and start directing their attention to law enforcement young, by the time they get to that age where they can apply to be a police officer or even a PSA, they're already familiar with it and involved and feel comfortable with the profession before someone like some tech firm steals them away. And so I think we need to continue to look at the front end and look at why there aren't more individuals applying to be police officers. And then once they're in, there are other issues such as leadership, such as of course it's about the attractiveness of the career field too. We all want to be part of a proud field. And if a certain profession is getting a lot of negativity surrounding it, that might shy a few people away. So there are a number of issues that to look at, but we need to focus a little more, more on the problem versus the symptoms. And I think we're paying way too much attention to what we see as to the symptoms versus the problem itself. There's more work that needs to be done on this. Yeah.
Dave, what do you make of the idea? APD recently started posting recruitment videos on TikTok. Is that the answer here, or again?
It can't hurt. It's a brave new world. But when Ed was talking about Adam 12, you have to remember. Communication and how do you get to the individual user has been completely shattered in the last decade.
Good point.
TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. It used to be you could get to 90% of the country using using the 3 television networks, and so communication is absolutely key. And Ed pointed out 2 things. One, we've made police the bad guy on television and a lot of entertainment, and 2, we how do we get to people? Like, what is being a police officer, is being a sheriff seen as a good career? And it should be seen as a good career. You can work 20 or 25 years, you get a good retirement. And, you're there. But for right now, it just seems like it is very difficult. It has been branded as a bad career. And, I don't know how you change that, but I think you need to change it.
Yeah. Hey, Julianne, real quick, Hobbs, Clovis, and Gallup, few of the smaller cities receiving some of this money. Hobbs is getting $5 million for 38 officers, Clovis $1.44 for 11 officers, and Gallup $1.31 million for 10 officers. What does this money mean for those smaller communities and departments compared to its influence in a city like Albuquerque?
Well, I think think that you're always dealing with the smaller the city, the smaller the tax base for everything, for, GRT, which largely funds, municipal operations. They're not able to bond as much. There's just a smaller pool of resources. And so I think it does have an outsized impact. And I think a city like Gallup getting 10 officers through this is definitely a benefit to that city. I think that tying this all into, other issues that are facing the small cities in New Mexico, like they need help on the front end, stopping alcohol related crime and, fatality related to health there. So, we need to send 10 more of everything to Gallup.
Julianne, just super quick, am I off here that it would be easier to recruit in smaller places like Gallup and places like that to recruit locally?
Well, I just think recruiting is a challenge for all. And I think that housing is in every community, finding adequate housing that is within the reach of your salary. We have this for police officers and firefighters and teachers and nurses. We need to solve our housing supply in order to continue to solve our labor issues as well.
I'm so glad you got that in. That's a key point right there. Thanks again to our panel. We have links to other reporting on this story, including funding totals for each department that's set to receive this money. Just find this story on our YouTube or social media pages. Now, we'll be back here at the virtual roundtable for one final discussion in less than 10 minutes on the decision to end the ban on prescribed burns. But first, a conversation I had the privilege of having yesterday live on our Facebook page with the City of Albuquerque's 6th Poet Laureate, Ana C. Martinez. She's been a driving force in the city's poetry scene for years, and as she tells me, her work as a civil rights attorney plays a big role in forming her writing as a poet. First things first, you've got a book out recently of poetry. Tell us about that.
I do. It's called Pura Puta. I've got it right here. It's all about pushing boundaries as a woman of color, a woman that is outspoken, woman raised as a Catholic girl child in a very progressive and liberal household, I guess I should say. So it kind of, shaped my identity, and it's got everything. It's got almost all of my poems in there. It's a poetic memoir for a reason. In the beginning, they are very raw poems that came out of my relationship and a life that I had prior to this one. My past life, I guess, as a bakery deli manager for Furr's grocery store, and I would write when things were going wrong, when things were going good, and just keep the notes. I never knew that they would amount to anything. But once I went back to school, Furr's, they went bankrupt. And so I saw that as my opportunity to go back to school. And so that's where I really started writing again. So it's a composite from way in the back, in the beginning, things that were written just, for my beginning poetry classes or just for myself, that I decided to put in there in pretty much their raw forms, because I wanted to see the progression myself from the beginning to what comes out at the end. So I was a little hesitant to do that, but I do not like being disingenuous. And so I thought that they were best in their raw form. And it's really interesting because a lot of the interviews that I have had, interviewers are choosing some of those kind of that I consider raw poems to ask me, what's going on here. So I really do like that.
Interesting point there. Tell the folks a little bit about you too, just to flesh out a little bit about you. I think you're fascinating in this way. You're also a civil rights attorney. I want to talk about that part of your career as well. You've been a legislative analyst in our roundhouse, and you survived to tell the tale. You're also a mom and a grandmom. And, interesting. I was interested in your background when you were starting to mention your youth. What got you into poetry? Was it someone in your family? Was there a specific event? What led you to poetry in the first place? I'm super curious.
What led me to poetry was that my father is a very prolific artist. He's an oil painter. He does contemporary art, and I cannot draw a stick figure. And my mom is a singer, and she had the most beautiful voice, and I can't carry a tune. But I was always part of my father's art because I would sit there on the other side of his easel. I was usually his model for whatever he needed. If he was is painting a bracero with a shovel, or kneeling on the ground, pulling up whatever it was. I was there, the one that was posing in the human 3D form, so that he could get it just right on the two-dimensional form, I guess, that it is his art. But I always felt a part of it, but I always I always had this flicker in there that said that I had some art in me too, and I just had to figure out what it was. I knew early on, I attribute this to my parents, because my mom taught me how to read really early. I was 3 years old when I started reading. Wow. And my dad was a college student at the time. So when he would go to the library to check out books for himself in his classes, he would bring home books for me as well. So my mom provided me with that identity from very early on, and my dad always supported it. So I knew early on that I was a writer, and but it was the performer in me that really pushed the poet out, because I did not want to be identified as a poet. In the second grade, I can remember telling people, no, I'm a writer. I write short stories. And that was my story, and I was sticking to it. But in the fifth grade, a teacher gave an assignment, and I was dead set against it, but I'm very competitive, especially as a student. So at the last minute, I sat down and cranked out this poem just to satisfy Sister Rosemary. And when I got up to read it in class, the reaction that I got, I just really loved it. I kind of have been searching for a stage all my life, and I realized that poetry could get me there. So I also realized that poetry isn't just about, nice, beautiful things, butterflies and rainbows and all of those things that I thought, but I knew that I could craft my short story into a poem that would have the song and the imagery that I long to have from both of my DNAs, right? And so once my dad told me that I paint with words, I decided that I was going to run with that.
That's pretty neat. I like that. That's a very fertile ground you sprung from. That's very interesting. Are there things about what you observe as a civil rights attorney that you have to just go home and write it down, literally, and just put it in a poetry form at some point from your notes? Does that happen?
I knew that in the application, I was going to have to attack that up front, that civil rights advocate in me that has that passion. Mm-hmm. So I did that immediately in the first paragraph, just like I would at trial, right? You take your weaknesses or your perceived weaknesses and you put them out there and explain them, and then you fortify that with the strengths that you really have. So I tried to do that because I was really worried about that. I was worried that people were going to think that I was just way too off on one side or the other to be a good poet laureate for the city of Albuquerque. But when I found out that I had been chosen and we had that discussion with the board, I realized that I had their support, and that was part of the reason that I was chosen, was my vocal advocacy. And so that has really empowered me, and it's humbled me at the same time, because now I know I can't just stand there and scream. I have to speak in a manner that's worthy of my position representing the city of Albuquerque, all of its citizens and constituents. It's not just me anymore. It's not just my ideology. Now it's the voices of those people that I know are being left out. And I know that because I understand the systemic structure now. I've lived in places where I've seen a lot of things and understand. And so I'm really thrilled. The very first poem I got to write was for the opening of the International District Library. Oh, I couldn't have kicked it off in a better manner, and now I've been invited by the Holocaust Museum and Martinez Town and different places, even by the Muslim community to write poems for events. So I'm just thrilled to death. I'm seeing that every poem I'm going to write is going to be a civil rights poem.
Thanks again to the Albuquerque Poet Laureate Anna C. Martinez. You can watch our full 40-minute interview that includes a rendition of Ms. Martinez's poem, Don't Be Nice. It was really cool. That's online right now on our New Mexico in Focus Facebook and YouTube pages. All right, last subject. The U.S. Forest Service says its ban on prescribed burns is over after 3 months. The program was put on hold in late May after the devastating Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon wildfire, which started with the action from the federal government. The Forest Service says there are new protocols in place to make sure there aren't any more disasters like that historic fire. We'll get into some of the specific procedural changes in a moment, but from what you all have read about the end of this ban, Julianne, I'll start with you. Is this the right time as the weather starts to change a little bit?
I think the Forest Service took a relatively short amount of time between pausing prescribed burns because of this catastrophe and resuming them. Considering how long the agency takes to make most of its decisions, that's really just a little flash in the pan. And I think it's important to note that allegedly they're going to have some same day decision making that goes hand in hand with their planning processes. But I think that, those who make the argument that the agency has really lost credibility over time, I think that argument is very strong among people in northern New Mexico, especially, although certainly folks who live around the Gila and other, Ruidoso, places that have also had big fire. But this fire in northern New Mexico that was caused by the Forest Service, we have to remember it wasn't just a prescribed burn that began on a windy day. It was also a slash pile that was left burning over the winter that flared up again. So the complexity of how these things can get out of hand, I think people are right to be fairly skeptical. But at the same time, I think it would be dangerous for the Forest Service to just stop these efforts to improve forest health, because our nation has let our forest get to the point where things are very, very dangerous.
I'm glad you brought that up. Ed, the Forest Service Chief, Randy Moore, says the agency is not going to back away from intentional burns, as Julianne just mentioned. He says he sees them as a crucial tool in reducing the buildup of fire fuel material for forest floors and grasslands. No one would disagree with that, right? It's the how. It's not the reason to do it. It's the how to do it. That's the problem here. Are you feeling that these guys have gotten on top of it at this point?
Let me just put this out there. I read a statement by the fire chief, Moore, that just jumped out at me. And he said, well, I can't guarantee that a fire isn't going to get out of control in the future. That concerned me, okay? These are prescribed burns. These are intentional. And I know there are a lot of things that you can't control. I would like to hear from that chief to say, we are going to do everything that we need to do so that this doesn't happen. But to already set this up as well, if it happens, and I see the data, some of the data in the report said that 99.8% of the prescribed burns are, happen with success and no other problems. But when you look at the 500 square miles and the destruction of property and lives, as a citizen, I want to hear we are doing everything so that this doesn't happen again, period, without the caveat that we're not going to guarantee, because that's opening it up to human failure. And we just can't accept that. We can't allow that to happen again. We need to take the requisite steps, even if it's overdoing it, to ensure this doesn't happen again. And that would be, my concern as a citizen. How do we make this 1%? Is there any way to do it? Well, that would be the ultimate goal without that caveat.
Dave, interestingly, one of the interesting changes will account for weather anomalies that can creep up in a matter of days in New Mexico, of course. Now, under this new guidance, plans to start prescribed burns will only be effective for 24 hours, not weeks or months. That's interesting. That's the way it was before. That seems like a common sense change, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, and I think that, the use of that term, common sense, is one that I think
Nice.
that, the federal government, especially in a state like New Mexico, California, these large states all over the West, they have a lot of power, and they do have, are given a mission to protect forests, to do what's right. And the thing is, too, and I would say, do we know really about what the criteria are for starting a burn or stopping a burn, or how the Forest Service works? And I mean, as evidenced by the 100-page report that was put out that all of us studied, I studied it for days, right? I'm being facetious. Of course, very few of us read it, but I think that we have to understand, and we don't understand, what are the roles that these areas, that these, departments have, and how can we as, individuals influence what their decision making is like? And we don't seem to know how to do that.
Interesting point there. Interestingly, in the case of the burn that became the Hermit's Peak fire, an administrator, Julianne, I want to go to you on this, signed off on the burn on March 24th to occur between April 1st and April 30th. So crews ignited on April 6th. And that's going to change to day of, certainly, but in my gut, it's just like, does that really make a huge difference? I'm not a fire expert, I'm not trying to be, but something doesn't seem quite together here. How do you make that part of it out in your own mind?
I mean, what I said before about the timelines, that the Forest Service has, I think it's interesting to consider another little piece of this puzzle, which is something called the Santa Fe Forest Mountain Landscape Resiliency Project. I may have added an extra word in there, but this is a federal, state, and private land planning effort that was going to impose prescribed burns on tens of thousands of acres north and east of Santa Fe.
Right.
And of course, this was in the final review process. It's been a years-long review process. We've written lots of stories about it. And I think I know that the pause in the federal prescribed burns also hit the pause button on the planning effort for that. And so we have this years and years of debate in the community, and certainly in Santa Fe, there is not agreement about prescribed burns and the value of that tool. There is a large vocal group that really feels like that is not the way to go.
Yeah.
And so, this is a tricky topic, and I don't know that the Forest Service really does have, the answer.
Mm-hmm. Ed, you mentioned the governor previously, and I love the quote from her spokesperson, which we assume is what the governor feels. Quote, "We hope the Forest Service understands that it will take actions, not just words, to earn back the trust of New Mexicans." That's pretty stiff stuff from a governor towards the federal government, but is she on solid ground there?
Well, when you see the devastation that happened to the lives of individuals who depend on government, who depend on the federal government, on the Forest Service, the state government, on BLM and all those people who are responsible for their lands, and when it gets out of control this way, their livelihood often is lost. There are a lot of people, individuals out there who are still trying to recover and may never recover. So, as the leader of our state, to make such a strong statement, I think is appropriate. We can't let this happen again. Again, These are intentional prescribed burns. This cannot happen again. Now, I don't know where the fire chief is from. I don't know if he works out of Washington, D.C. But when you're here in this state and you care about what happens in the state, and you want to make sure that you do everything and hold those accountable who are responsible for those decisions that might impact their lives.
Dave, it's hard for a federal agency to sort of filter down its plans and goals and ideals down to the public. I mean, has anybody even heard what the Forest Service had to say about this? But you know what I mean? I'm sure they understand where the governor's coming from on this. Right. Should we just all be there and just not trust these people at all at this point and just let them prove a point?
Well, I mean, that would certainly be my reaction at this point. I mean, if the Forest Service says, "Yeah, we're going to reschedule and we're going to start to schedule, some burns," I would say run. I mean, that's what the evidence tells us. And but I do think that the other question that is going to have to be answered is, if we are facing climate change, it's going to affect things like prescribed burns. It's going to affect the density of forests and, all sorts of things that a layman like me probably won't understand. It's going to affect our water. What is the federal government, as the planning agency or the agency in charge of these things, What are they doing? What are they planning? You know, we seem to spend all of our time fighting about, you know, strange things that don't seem to make much sense. We are facing some very serious problems. And do we have the talent and the ability and the communication skills to sort of overcome them? You know, that's the question that I would have.
That's a good point there. Hey, thanks again to our line panel, as always, this week. Now, be sure to let us know what you think about any of the topics the line covered on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages. Good stuff this week for sure. And catch up on any episodes you might have missed on the PBS Video app on your Roku or Smart TV. Now, before we go, the State Fair is in Albuquerque, and of course that means food, fun, and rides for the family, but it also means it's Navy Week here in the city. Senior producer Lou DeVizio sat down with 3 members of the Navy, an officer who serves on the USS Santa Fe, a lieutenant on the USS New Mexico, and a rear admiral. Now, Lou wanted to find out more about their ties to our state, which are many, and why the Navy chose to stop in Albuquerque, of all places.
It's Navy Week in Albuquerque. I'm happy to be joined by 3 representatives from the U.S. Navy. First, Rear Admiral Gene Price. He's Vice Commander of the Naval Information Forces. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Lieutenant Trey Olson. You're on the USS New Mexico. And Petty Officer Hunter Jones from the USS Santa Fe.
Sir.
Thanks for being here. I'd like to start with each of you, but starting with you, Rear Admiral, just a little bit of background on yourself. I know you've been here to Albuquerque before for Navy Week, so what's that like?
Well, doing a Navy Week is, well, for one thing, it's fun for us. It's a break in what we're doing all the time, but we're here to show the people who are watching your show, the people in New Mexico, what they're paying for in a Navy. And it's not just the ships, it's the people. And there's a remarkable amount of diversity within the Navy, just like you see here in Albuquerque, which the diversity and inclusion here is very impressive. We are, we think, world-class Navy, that the taxpayers want to be out there defending the nation. If something were bad to happen, the Navy's going to be there. But also, it protects the sea lanes, making sure that when things are made here in Albuquerque, whether it's at Intel or Sandia Labs, wherever it is, and it gets shipped overseas, 90% of all commerce goes by the ocean, and somebody's got to protect that. That's where the Navy comes in.
Lieutenant Olson, can you explain your position on the USS New Mexico and just give a little bit of background on that ship too?
Yeah, so I'm the Assistant Operations Officer right now and the Special Operations Forces Officer as well. We're heavily integrated as the USS New Mexico, a lockout trunk capable boat, working with SEAL teams and taking them to places where they need to be and doing some really interesting operations with them and launching them out of a submerged submarine. So it's very cool, and it's a great opportunity to work with a lot of the SEALs. They are professionals, just like the submarine force strives to be in many ways. So.
Petty Officer Jones, how about your time on the USS Santa Fe? What's different about your submarine versus the USS New Mexico?
Yes, sir. So the USS Santa Fe is a Los Angeles class fast attack submarine. The USS New Mexico is a Virginia class fast attack submarine. Los Angeles classes are an older class of submarine, and so they have more capabilities than them, but than us, and they also have like you was talking about, like the SEAL capabilities, which make slightly different than our capabilities, and also just the ship's design and what situation suits best for each one. The Los Angeles class submarines are still very capable boats. The primary duty of Los Angeles class fast attack submarine is to eliminate hostile threats, and that's what the fast attack submarines are about.
Why Albuquerque? What puts us on the list?
Well, Albuquerque, as we were talking offline, is a pretty cool town, and sailors love pretty cool towns. But Albuquerque is so far from any navigable body of water, from the Pacific, from the Gulf. It's a pretty good drive. So the easiest way to show people in the heartland, so to speak, is to bring the Navy to you. And that's why we've got the lieutenant and our second class petty officer, soon going to be a first, I'm sure, and show them the kind of talent we have and what we can do with the capabilities the taxpayers are providing for us. Really, that's why we're here. And also, to show the flag. We do want to meet interested people who would like to join the Navy.
What kind of events are you taking part in? I know the state fair is going on. Are you guys set up there?
Yeah, so we have a pavilion at the state fair. Given a lot of education, shaking hands, getting to meet people. We receive, I know for us on New Mexico, a ton of support from the surrounding area. Pino and coffee. We get salsas. We've sent our cooks out to New Mexico for events, and it giving people the opportunity to see those sailors that they're supporting. I think is also really important because. When that Pino and coffee shows up to the boat after an arduous underway or in preparation for one, like for a deployment, it is really a huge morale booster. People love it. It's cool. You feel like you have a link back to the state that you represent. All this stuff that's around the boat. It gives the sailors something to kind of reach back for, not just their families, but to the other people, really, the taxpayers who we are here servicing. So. It's a great opportunity to come and be here and finally see that stuff.
How about you? What kind of events have you been able to participate in so far? Will you later this week?
Later this week, we are doing Habitat for Humanity. We will be going to a Boys and Girls Club, going to speak at schools, specifically for myself, Petty Officer Bush, the other sailor from the USS Santa Fe that's with me here. And we'll be doing that all week. We have a full schedule. I'm very excited to do it all.
Now, Rear Admiral Price, what's New Mexico's influence like in the Navy as far as personnel goes? What's the footprint like as far as New Mexicans actually in the Navy?
We have about 3,000 New Mexicans right now. The last numbers I saw was 2,900 something in the Navy. And this is active duty primarily. So the influence they have, we would like to be bigger, but everyone that I know who's hailed from New Mexico loves New Mexico, and they're very eager to talk about it. And, but once you're in the Navy, where you came from kind of dissolves into the background. It's about what you're doing now, defending the nation. And, but we never lose our sense of identity and our sense of home. Like I was talking to somebody this morning at the state fair who was saying he couldn't wait to get back to Albuquerque because he missed the Chili's. And I had Chili's for lunch, and I think I know what he's talking about. So it's those sorts of things where you're part of something bigger than yourself in the Navy, but you're still bringing Albuquerque, New Mexico with you.
Did anyone catch the reporting on how much cannabis was sold in New Mexico in August? It was pretty revealing for how much was sold, which was another record month actually, but also where people are buying legal adult use cannabis. Really interesting. Now, statewide, a record $24.2 million in recreational cannabis was sold, and $40.7 million was the total haul, counting in medical cannabis. Now, one interesting note was Rio Rancho, which sold more medical than recreational. That's so interesting. My guess is there's so many recreational shops open down the hill in Albuquerque at this point that Rio Rancho recreational buyers likely contributed to Albuquerque's $8 million haul out of convenience going back up the hill. Albuquerque also sold $6.2 million in medical, which is $250,000 less than in July. Perhaps those folks went up the hill to Rio Rancho for medical? Who knows? All right, looking further north, Santa Fe sold $1.9 million in recreational, Taos $410,000, but it's looking south where it's the most interesting. Example one would be Ruidoso, selling $740,000 in recreational sales in August alone. Carlsbad sold almost $795,000, Clovis $675,000, and Little Anthony nearly $500,000 in weed sales. It turns out that border towns like Texaco and closer to the border towns like Roswell, Portales, and Clayton accounted for more than 30% of recreational sales statewide in August. That's pretty amazing, but it's also on point when you recall part of the debate regarding legalization included how smaller towns in the state could also reap the reward. Now, the biggest and perhaps most obvious takeaway, turns out opening a recreational weed shop within hailing distance of Texas can be quite lucrative indeed. Thanks again for joining us, for staying informed and engaged. We'll see you again next week in Focus.
Funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by viewers like you.